it's time to go ahead and gear up to look at some new odds that have dropped for the Cookout 400 at Richmond Raceway this weekend. I'm going to pull up Caesars because I am Garage Guy Caesar. And so I'm putting on my Caesar shades. You wear goggles and your helmet. I wear Garage Guy Caesar shades. I have to put these on so I can see the odds, the new odds for this race. Barstool, I don't think has dropped odds for this, but odds are out and available right now for the race. Outrights and a couple of other little props are available on Caesars, Bet Rivers, and I believe that
just all the Canby, Caesars and the Canby books.
And Caesars, yeah, William Hill and Canby. So with that being said, Canby is old Barstool because Barstool now is new. I'm just going to go ahead and read off of Caesars. I'm going to do that. King of the Castle. One bet that I automatically am a little inclined to want to pull the trigger on is going to be going back in with Kyle Larson at plus 650. We saw him qualify here earlier in the year, how he ran. I don't think those odds are going to get any better. We're probably going to dance somewhere between 6 and maybe 7.5. I think 7.5 may be as high as we see him go based off.
Who are you talking about? Who?
Kyle Larson.
Larson. Gotcha.
So with me taking him as the one-shot wonder bet last week, you have to look at where he's at mentally right now. And you guys know me, I'm big on the mentality of the driver, where their head's at, what is happening in the news with them, what is going on and bubbling up around them as an individual in the race car. Right now, Kyle Larson is already talking about, I'm going to forget about this. I'm going to go race on Tuesday. He's going to get back in the winning zone. We already saw that he had the shit he needed to win at Richmond. Josh Berry in the 9 car got a P2 finish here earlier in the year. Might be looking pretty good for Chase Elliott, with Hendrick kind of having something figured out here. And right now, Chase Elliott, he has to get a win. He has to make something happen to get in the playoffs. And he is 13-1 to win right now over on Caesars. So I can't imagine that we'll see him go much longer unless he does what he did in practice and qualifying at Pocono this past weekend. But even with that, it's just the fact that Josh Berry was in that 9 car, was able to do what he did. I can't imagine that Chase Elliott's going to string out too far behind Larson if these cars are still gassed up, juicing, and running the way that they were earlier in the year. And I know that a lot of people are going to want to lean on, the Truex bet, the Harvick bet because of what we saw last year. Look, it's a new year. I'm going to go off of what I've seen recently. Right now, I'm leaning Larson and possibly Chase Elliott 13-1. Those are 2 early leans I like over on Caesars. Dale, what are you looking at?
Well, don't forget that Josh Berry got a P2 because he stayed out to grab a yellow, and a yellow came out because they trapped a bunch of guys a lap down, and it was just gold mine, lucky break, which Josh was running, around the top 10 most of that race. So I don't want to discredit him there, but he got a P2, a second place to Larson because of the strategy they played, So, but I mean, that is in play for Chase Elliott too, right? Because like you said, I agree. We talk about this playoff bubble, which is another storyline, and it always is around this time of year. I don't think Chase can point his way in with the consistency of Bubba Wallace, Michael McDowell. I know he didn't have a great run, but if he continues races where he's getting stage points and running top 20, I don't think McDowell is going to get knocked out unless one of these guys below the cut line wins a race. And then you got to consider AJ Allmendinger, not in particular with Richmond, but with the schedule coming up, all these road courses before you get to the playoffs, like Indy, Watkins Glen, which, the Glen hasn't been the best track. I say all these road courses, but we got 2, right? But that's 2 big opportunities for someone like Allmendinger to get a win. But that's digging into this playoff battle is a little off topic from the bets that we like heading into the weekend. But it is worth noting just because of what someone like Josh Berry did in the spring, being aggressive on strategy. And that playoff bubble is what's going to force guys like Suarez and Chase Elliott and maybe a Ty Gibbs to be as aggressive as possible to try to steal a win. And so, I mean, I think Elliott at 13-1 is not bad in that aspect if you're kind of thinking that way. But I'm going to lean in a different direction and look at Kevin Harvick 9-1. Kevin Harvick has just found a way to be good at most racetracks in 2023 with a struggling Ford program, with a struggling Stewart-Haas program, especially Stewart-Haas. I mean, my God, lawnmower race cars, literally bringing lawnmowers for race cars for Chase Briscoe, Almirola, Preece for probably half the fucking season. I mean, it's crazy. So him and Rodney Childers have still found a way to bring good race cars and get good finishes. And the cream of the crop for Kevin Harvick has been the shorter, flatter racetracks over the past couple of years. Should have won Phoenix earlier this year. Had a good car at Richmond this year. Had a winning car at Richmond last year. Won the race, actually, this race in 2022. I think you got to consider Kevin Harvick at 9-1 on Bet Rivers. I'm eager to see if a DraftKings or a FanDuel opens him up in in double figures at a 10-1, 11-1, maybe. And it could be something you wait on because Kevin Harvick has not been the best at qualifying, even at races where he's had one of the best cars. I don't think he does it on purpose, but he's unintentionally a sandbagger when it comes to qualifying. Just doesn't typically qualify up front, but races really well when you get long runs. And Richmond, super well known for boring ass long runs. Let's just face it. So I think Kevin Harvick is a good early lean. And I got to look at Joey Logano. I've been critical of Penske with the short track package this year. They were okay. Blaney's been good. Blaney is the other Ford exception that's been good just about everywhere, while the majority of the Ford program has still struggled with speed, right? Blaney and Harvick have been those two guys. Blaney's had the speed just about everywhere. Logano has kind of struggled at these shorter, flatter racetracks. He said it in his post-race interview at New Hampshire when he finished second, which I did not expect. He said, we just tried something completely different because they struggled at the New Hampshire race last year, and they found something because they ran top 5 the whole day. You come back to Richmond, where in this race last year, Joey Logano led 222 laps. I mean, dominated the first part of this race, and as the runs went longer, track conditions changed a little bit. Some other guys caught up, especially Kevin Harvick, Christopher Bell, who were also on. Bell was on a crazy strategy that almost worked and got him a second-place finish, and Harvick, I think, just had a better car than most of the field later in that race. So I think Joey Logano sitting at 14-1 on Caesars is something he can't go wrong with. It's a guy that might qualify on the pole, and then that line is gone. We've seen Logano with good qualifying speed throughout the year. I think Joey Logano at 14-1 for a guy that not only dominated this race last year until the later portions, but also has a great Richmond resume if you really dig into the numbers. So I think Joey Logano, 14-1 is a good early lean. And then maybe a Brad Keselowski. One more time on the Ford camp. I hate that I'm on 3 Fords, but Brad K, can't talk enough about how much his program has improved. And they've had some good speed on these shorter, flatter racetracks. Had top 5 speed at New Hampshire. Richmond, over the past decade has been a good Brad K racetrack. I think Brad K at 25-1 on Caesars could be a good early underdog lean if you want to go there.
I got you. So you're a little bit more in the Ford corner this week. I don't think that's a bad thing whatsoever. I'm going to stick to the Chevy camp this week. I feel like it's time for a good bounce back Chevy weekend because these books be sleeping. And let me tell you right now, you were talking about Joey Logano. Like, he was a guy that you can get these odds on long right now, probably have a great qualifying run, and you're not going to see him again. They're going to disappear. There's one guy that has not been running that great since his first win of the 2023 season, a guy that is currently 18-1 to win this race. He finished 3rd here earlier in the year. I'm going to take the gamble and say that Trackhouse Racing gets back on their game this week. Ross Chastain at 18-1 on Caesars looks like a bet that I may take now. Because when I take a look at what he was able to perform, how he was able to perform here the last outing, okay, he started 4th, finished 3rd. He showed consistency there. He only led 16 laps, a Stage 1 and Stage 2 top 5 finish. they were right there on the bubble, just missed the mark. Maybe a couple of bad restarts, maybe just didn't have what they needed on the long run. But I'm willing to bet that Trackhouse doing what they've done, making the noise they've made this year, not so much Suarez, maybe a little more the team, maybe a little bit more Ross. I can't see a world where Ross Chastain doesn't get back on the horse this weekend and try to carve out a win here at this short track. We have seen him time and time again kind of go in and out. He rides these roller coasters, right? I'm just saying at 18-1, I think Caesars is really just soaring that one a little bit too long out there. Because when you look over on Canby, I think he's 15-1. I still think that's a little bit long as well. I want to eat that. I want to eat that up right now. I want to go ahead and grab that. You can put you a nice little, half unit on it, and you're still going to have a really great payday. We did have Chastain to win in Nashville. I had that bet. I gave that bet out. I gave it to a bunch of people, actually. We had the Discord. I'm on Action, just like with Dale. So we have all these places where you can find our bets week in and week out for free. We put them up there. I felt this way about Chastain at Nashville. I'm feeling it again for this week. I think that this is where we could see him pop up and say surprise to celebrate his new Busch beer sponsorship going into 2024.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about Ross, but
You got to think about it.
Kind of deal. You kind of mentioned it. I think the long run speed wasn't there, but they were good, much better than what they were at Richmond last year. Last year, the whole Trackhouse team, but Ross in particular, really, really struggled at this track, and to get a top 5 definitely means something. I think William Byron sitting at plus 850 just kind of caught my eye, because William Byron has probably been one of the few guys that's been fast at almost every single racetrack. I mean, racking up stage wins left and right. Was really good at Pocono, just was not on the right strategy. His averages don't show it, but in 2022 spring came here, finished in the top 3. Last year came here, led laps, ran up front a lot of the day. And I got to go back and watch what happened this spring, because he won stage 1, he finished 3rd in stage 2, led a bunch of laps, and finished 24th. I don't remember what happened, I'll be honest. I haven't watched the race from the spring yet, which I typically do tonight or Tuesday night. So I got to go see what happened in that race, because William Byron was good. And as I said, a guy that has been fast at so many different track configurations in 2023. And to reiterate kind of what I was talking about earlier with betting on the bad side of things, like Austin Hill, a right place at the right time guy. I mentioned William Byron in that department. Usually, at least this year, William Byron has been a big right place at the right time kind of guy, and he's got the best performing pit crew in the sport right now, and we've seen that time and time again. So I think William Byron's sitting at plus 850. You're right now, same thing as last week. The books are obsessed with Toyota right now because of how hot they are with a lot of their guys, whether it's from Gibbs or 2311, bunch of them running up in the top 5 speed, top 10 speed. Not just the Gibbs guys, but Tyler Reddick competing for wins. Bubba Wallace running up front and getting destroyed by his pit crew every week. But the Toyota train is so hot right now that it's given better opportunities to grab some of these Hendrick guys that maybe should be priced somewhere closer to the Gibbs guys. But plus 850 for Willie B, who's been one of the top guys in the sport all year long, variety of different racetracks, led laps here in the past 3 races. Maybe that sticks out early, and has been an excellent qualifier. Literally just won the pole at Pocono. So a lot of things to like when it comes to maybe betting William Byron as an early guy.
Got love for Rudy Fugle and the boys. They have been doing pretty well. I do have myself a championship ticket for old Willie B. So hopefully I can get to cash that. I would love to see that 24 back where it needs to be. Ring, 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 ring. Rudy Fugle's calling. He wants his burritos. So with us talking about these outrights, I think that's a pretty good overview, and I think that collectively we're one of those guys are going to win the race. One of the guys that you and I just talked about probably going to win the race. But before we close this thing out, though, I did want to point out there was one prop bet that's currently up on Caesars. I might just bet this one for shits and gigs. Race to go overtime plus 190 for a yes. With all of the drama that we have seen this year, I feel like that could be free money. Now, Richmond is typically a race where I don't want that to happen. I want to see a green flag run. When it comes to this track, the strategy, there's just something about it. What some people may see as boring about Richmond, I see as amazing. I like puzzles, and Richmond's kind of a puzzle. So I might just bet that for shits and gigs because it almost seems like a lock that we're gonna probably have an overtime finish with the way races have ran.
And the one thing caught up in all the headlines, we didn't talk about the bad judgment cautions that people were talking about. The one in particular on the white flag. I mean, I think there is. It's very important. I mean, it's stuff that's manipulating race outcomes. In this case,
hope someone got fired. That's all
I think the Xfinity race, the Connor Mosack hitting the wall, that's borderline if that's a caution. I can't stand single car incidents that don't flood the track with debris. Everybody keeps moving, and you just throw quick yellows for those. In the case of what happened with Ryan Preece, I actually think that NASCAR, let's just say that was on lap 52, just in the middle of the race. Everybody would look at that caution in an entirely different manner. Ryan Preece spins. He got tapped, whatever. Corey LaJoie turned him. He may have clipped the outside wall, but he spins low, doesn't hit anything, and he starts going again. To me, NASCAR not throwing the yellow there is the right move because he looks like he's moving again, and you want it to go green. But then he stalls out on the white flag, and it forces NASCAR to throw it. People are so mad about that. Like, I know NASCAR's had some really bad judgment calls over cautions over the years. 2016, Carl Edwards, probably the worst one in the history of NASCAR when it comes to implications of a championship. But bad judgment calls several times in all three major series. This one I don't think was, because if you're looking at that exact thing, if you're looking at that exact contact and spin at any other point in the race, you're saying, okay, NASCAR tried to wait. It looked like he was going, and then they threw it when they absolutely had to. That's how a caution should be judged if we're using pure judgment calls to signify what a caution is. But because it was the final lap of the race, everybody's pissed. They're like, damn, you should let him race back. Well, you can't. You just can't. Look up Dale Jarrett, New Hampshire, 2003, and you'll understand why. But I feel like that's a hot take. I feel like most people are pissed off about it. I think actually NASCAR was right in how they handled that caution. And I know that kind of, I know that's kind of like the one thing we missed in our notes. Not really where you want to end the show at, I guess, but I had to say something about it because I think it is important.
A better job of writing this stuff down. So I talked about this a good bit on the Garage Guys report. I had a lot of voicemails. I had a couple of very passionate voicemails. People, by the way, if you're here on TikTok, this number behind you, 919-769-4477. You can call that after the NASCAR race every week. Leave a voicemail. Let me know your thoughts on the race. I will play your voicemail, and that is on Garage Guys YouTube. Go subscribe. Do it. The way that I see it is a lot like the way you see it, right? I think that we are so used to NASCAR, like everybody's complained about how many times NASCAR throws caution flags. The one time that they actually do it in a way where they're hopeful
they tried not to
roll off, everybody's like, what? Because they were waving the yellow flag in the flag stand, and then NASCAR made them pull it back because they realized they didn't call the caution. There was a guy waving the flag. I had somebody call in that was at Pocono, that was at the race, and they were right there by it, said they were waving the flag.
And I didn't see that.
They had to pull it back in. Yeah, they had to pull it back in because NASCAR didn't call the caution. And look, those people in race control are humans. We don't have computers running this shit. You know, like when you look at sports, you got a lot of humans making a lot of things. And what does that mean? You're prone to human error. I don't feel like it's an error because if I would have been in race control and I would have seen Ryan Preece slowly creeping in that car after he spun, I'm like, oh, great. We're going to actually get to end this race under normal circumstances. He's going to be able to drive off and get out of the way. And then it just didn't happen. And so by the time they're getting around and you know, they got to have millions of monitors up there. They're watching it. But yeah, like you said, it just got right to the part of the ass crack where you were about to get drenched in it all if you didn't pull out. And hey, that's what happens. It sucks. Nobody wants to see a race in that way. I remember being a kid and being at that
What
Talladega
was that
race.
metaphor you just used? I'm sorry. What?
I don't know. It came out of my head. I just say shit sometimes. That's why people love me. I but I remember the race at Talladega where that was like that. They had a good stretch of races like that where everybody threw beer cans at Jeff Gordon's car. Like my parents and all of their friends were those people.
Yeah, that's another one,
Humming them.
dude.
It's like nobody wants to pay that much money and see that. You want to see fucking right
Dude,
to
NASCAR is so, let's just be honest, like NASCAR is so back when there's enough passion out there to throw stuff on the track at a driver.
good people in
That,
the
like, you can say whatever, like, oh God, like, you know, it's unclassy. Fuck that, dude. When you have that kind of stuff happening, that's passion, right? That is like you care a lot about what just happened. And that's what NASCAR needs in a time where we lost so much star power, right? That's why Denny Hamlin is so, this villain arc that started in 2017, it has been great for the sport. And all the people that hate him don't even realize it. They don't even realize like what their thoughts have caused and good press for NASCAR because of the villain arc Denny took. And NASCAR is so back when you're throwing beer cans at a driver that you hate. I absolutely love that. And going back to the caution thing, the one thing I'll say, I totally agree with you. Like on other sports, this shit happens. But when it comes to NASCAR and auto racing, I see a lot of chatter where people get upset because there's too many rules, right? There's too many rules. This is why there are too many rules. Because when you leave topics in the hands of just judgment, you have inconsistency. When you have a set rule for something, like one of these tic-tacky pit road penalties, like pitting outside the box or driving through too many boxes, it's black and white, right? Which I think is better if you really think about it. Black and white is a better way to officiate most things. And look, most sports don't work that way. An umpire in baseball is a great example of a position of power that misses calls all the time.
Are
And
they
that's
at the
because
casino? That's a question I have today.
yeah,
I'm
right. How
wondering.
much money influences this shit, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, that's the thing is like judgment is what causes this. And an umpire, like his rule, it's based upon judgment. What's a strike and what's a ball? It's depending on one guy. Race control, I think it's one or two people. Like there's a lot of people out there, but there's one person that hits that button, right? You got everything relying on one guy to decide. And I could be wrong there. I don't want to say if I'm wrong. There's probably a team that's all talking, right?
I want to
But you're
interview
relying
you.
on a handful of people to make this decision on what's a yellow, what's a caution, and what isn't. And I don't know what the fix is. Like, I don't know how you create this very objective rule to signify what a caution is without having more controversy. Like, it feels like a rule that needs to be in the judgment of someone really, really smart. But I
Like
don't
us.
know let me do it.
That's what I
Honestly,
was gonna
like,
say. We need to go meet race control. Like, dude, we'll just become
give
friends
me
with
your
them, dude.
job.
Yeah,
Dude,
we're
no,
not gonna sit in the room.
I would not want that job, dude. I would
I
not
would
want
I
that
would
job.
micromanage the fuck like, dude. I'd be on the shoulders. I'd be like, uh.
But here's the thing: if I were race control, I'd be on the verge of like a car spinning and there's debris flying all over the place, and I'm just like, no, stay green. We're keeping it green. We're keeping it green. Like
Bobby's
I would
running
leave it
everywhere.
green. Yeah, I would leave
Stay
it
green.
green in like more extreme circumstances, like Dale Jarrett 2003 New Hampshire type shit. Like, and
Oh,
if you haven't seen that, you need to look. Anybody in here listening, you need to look that video up because that is what has revolutionized the judgment caution since 2003 2004 to the point where it is now. And funny enough, too, and I think you have different race control between all three series. Like I think our buddy Jesse Little is race control for the truck series, and which is I think he started that this year.
we
But
should interview him.
I mean, I'm sure he'd have some good things to say because I've been critical of truck series race control all year, right? I've been critical of how it's been officiated, and he's a friend of ours. But yeah, that actually would be probably a pretty insightful interview.
Imagine
But
a
not to get
garage
off.
talk with race control though.
Yeah. Honestly, it could be a very educating interview for a lot of people, right? Because it's probably not that much different being race control for a truck race compared to Cup. Like I just anticipate there's more volume with the help that you get. But what I was going to say was, ironically, in the Xfinity race, the last caution, so they took the white flag and somebody's bumper flew off and just landed on the start finish line on the white flag. I mean, a big fucking piece of debris just laying there. Nobody's throwing a yellow. They're letting them race it out. They did not throw a yellow until Josh Berry and Ryan Sieg crashed in turn 2. But there's a fat piece of debris sitting on the racetrack, and they weren't going to call a yellow. They're going to let them race it out. So like, that just adds to this inconsistency of like, dude, what is a caution? Is it judged upon if it's the last lap or 2 to go? I don't know if I like that. I'd rather it be more black and white if you can make it that way. Because if you judge it upon if it's the last lap or 2 to go, now you risk manipulating outcomes in the worst way possible.
I'm ready to say that race control is umpires, because I've been playing a lot of MLB The Show, and I throw a lot of nasty fucking strikes with my Kenny Powers, my character, and they don't give them to me. They're inside the box every time, just slinging cutters, and they're like, ball. That's what's happening with race control. They're just making these shots. So we need to meet them, talk to them, figure this out. Well, I feel like even if we built like a scale for it, though, they wouldn't use it. They wouldn't use it.
Well, and look, we got to go back to what the positive part of this. We actually both agree that the Cup race, that caution was judged properly. It's just
Sometimes
consistency.
You feel like that.
We're so fucking inconsistent between all 3 series. I don't know what the fix is. I can sit here and talk shit all I want, and same with you. What is the fix? I don't know. We haven't found a fix in baseball to an umpire. We hadn't found a fix in the NFL when it comes to their replay up in New York that botches calls all the time. And it's like some guy like the fucking Deal or No Deal banker calling in, just like looking at a small little screen and just saying, hey, that's the call. Yeah. And you're like, okay, got it.
The grocery store from the movie Casino. That's who they're calling. The guy that owned the grocery store. That's him, the head of the mob. That's him.
Yeah.
That's who they call in New York. But yeah, dude, no. And I mean, to tie all this back into where we were talking about betting, you see something like that happen at Richmond, the flag coming out. You don't have enough time. So that's why I do think
that's a good point. Yeah.
That's why I do think that the overtime finish, yes, to that happening, plus 190 on Caesars, I think that's going to be a good bet for this week, because something like that could easily happen. And at a racetrack like that, you can't take those kind of chances. Pocono, you can pit, get out, still get in front of the leader. You got plenty of time. It's not
that's a good point too about the judgment of yellows, is like the size of the racetrack.
Yeah.
Like, if somebody spins at Richmond and you don't know if they're gonna spin off the track or not, your yellow is gonna come out a lot quicker than, a good example at Pocono and in the Xfinity race, them waiting it out to maybe see if that big bumper cover just blows away. So that's a good point too. It's such a can of worms, and I always think back to 2016 when nothing happened. Corey LaJoie just like pulled down below the apron, and they threw a yellow and ripped the championship out of Carl Edwards' hands. So yeah, it's a tough conversation, but
that's who should be race control. They should give Carl Edwards. They should let Carl Edwards be race control, bro. Imagine. Could you imagine?
That's the redemption. That's the redemption arc. Just let Carl Just let him put the championship in his hands. Yeah.
You can appoint anyone you want before you die. Like, this is just your gig now. And it's just like, it'll automatic every time a caution comes out, it just like cut scenes to Carl standing like this in a window, staring down. It's like, and there's Carl Edwards, race control of all of NASCAR.
I just hope that, like, if Jimmy Johnson was racing and Carl Edwards was race control, that like he just throws a phantom caution while Jimmy's leading, get his 84th win to pass Darrell Waltrip, throw a phantom caution, just rip that win out of his arms.
That sounds almost as good as
that's what I would want.
Yeah. That's good right there. I love it. I love where this went. I love how this show is going. I love the fact that we're live on your TikTok right now. I think we need to keep doing this. I can't see what you guys are saying, but I hope you enjoyed the hell out of this show. You got to be the first person to hear and watch the Garage Guys NASCAR podcast in action on TikTok. We just made history tonight.
Yeah.
Today.
Skeet, thanks for the rose. I got to give that shout out. Thanks for the rose.
Got a rose?
Got a SpongeBob reference from Catfish Cody. I appreciate that. People with claps. Thank you all. Appreciate you. And everybody listening, I hope you've enjoyed this. Final question for you, Chase. I think I've talked about this. I don't remember if you said this or not. Is Denny Hamlin in the wrong? Black and white answer. Is Denny Hamlin in the wrong for what he did on Sunday?
Black and white answer or my answer?
It had simple. It's yes or no. Yes or no, and why?
If he didn't break any of the NASCAR rules in the NASCAR rule book, then he's in the clear. If we're looking black and white,
But that's not not like objective rules. Like, let's just say race
standpoint,
race etiquette, racecraft,
race etiquette. That is dependent.
Because that's the topic here.
Yeah, I feel like race etiquette is dependent upon the person. What you will reap what you sow. You will get what you put out. We've seen that example in Ross Chastain. If Denny Hamlin is the guy and he said it clearly. And I also love the fact that Kyle Larson just called this dude out and basically said he was a know-it-all. And that was the most like petty thing he could have done in that conversation, because it's like that's how you know he was digging at his soul, because he made him say that about him. And but I will say with Denny, where I'm at with it is he had a lot he was racing for, more than just a win, more than just points. It was celebratory, whatever. But Denny did say, I'm racing for the win. So that says that is what he is doing every weekend. If he's up front, he's going to do whatever he's got to do to make sure he wins that race. The tone is set. I don't think he's wrong for it. That's just his way of doing it. But you're going to have balls if he's up front and you're going to race him. And you're going to have to know and be prepared that he's coming like that. And you got to ask yourself as a driver,
am I willing to do to him what he would do to me?
Yeah. It's all about your perception of it. And obviously Denny Hamlin's perception, even in conjunction with what, I don't even know if that's the right word to use right now. My brain is fried. But even in line with what Larson was saying about how Denny's always right, if that's how Denny thinks and that's how Denny lives his life, then he is right, because he is right to him. So that means everybody else can be right to themselves, and they need to remember that when there's one to go at a race and Denny Hamlin's up front and they want that win more than Denny.
But it was spot on, man. Larson said all those things, and then Denny did exactly what Larson said he would do. Like, that is what, to me, is hilarious. And I didn't expect it. I really thought, because Denny's been, remember we were riding together a lot earlier in the year to the races, and we listened to the first, 3-4 episodes of Denny's pod.
I haven't listened.
Yeah. I hadn't either. And I'm just not a podcast guy. So like, unless I'm doing long rides, I'm just not going to do it. But
you are podcast. That's the one.
Yeah. But the thing is, he did exactly what Larson said he would do. And I thought Denny, as transparent as I thought he's been on his pod, I thought he would backtrack and be like, yeah, I saw the replay. I touched him, and I tweeted that. If you look at my Twitter, the view from Kevin Harvick's onboard, I think, is the most clear, the clear-cut view that shows that there was contact made. And yeah, it doesn't matter. Like, I know people are like, oh, but it was a little bit of contact. Like, it wasn't that much contact. He didn't door slam him. I know. The point is, Denny is doubling down that there was no contact made that influenced how Kyle Larson's race car drove in that moment. And there 100% was. And it did influence what Kyle Larson's race car did in that moment. That's my point. I'm disappointed that Denny, to me, like, I thought it was a racing deal, kind of in the wrong, but Denny doubling down there makes it more wrong for me. And Curb Your Enthusiasm is my favorite show. You've seen Curb Your Enthusiasm. I'm a believer in karma. And, Kyle Larson made his comments like, fuck, he doubled down. I will race him differently, right? So we're brewing the Hendrick rivalry with Denny once again. Great for the sport. And we're setting up for a clash late in the season when these guys, who I think are both going to make the top 8 and be championship contenders when it's all said and done, we're setting up another clash. I mean, think about it too. I know Pocono's not a mile and a half, but the style of racing, bigger racetracks, intermediates, two of them have come down to these two drivers. And we've seen these two drivers battle for the win at a lot of different racetracks and tracks that are in the playoffs too. So it's going to lead up to a clash. And Kyle Larson, I think overall is a pretty clean race car driver, but his comments tell me like he will be willing to do the same thing Denny did to him to win a race if he's in that moment. So all in all, just excited to see what happens next.
I got a final prediction before we end this show. I'm holding my crystal because I believe it firmly. We're going to see this all come to a head a lot sooner than we think, and I think it's going to happen this weekend in Richmond. I think Kyle will come out victorious, and I think Denny is going to come out angry, and that's all I'm going to say.
Wait, no, one more. Can you rub the crystal and just say that I'm going to win all my bets this weekend? That's really what we need.
We need to be aligned then. I need to hear you, you need to hear me, and we're going to make sure that we find a way to make this happen. So outright.
Well, remember, like Xfinity and trucks, or that I
tell you every weekend, baby.
I need to win those as much as I need to win Cup.
Universe out there, hear me. Dale Tanhart will be making bets this weekend in NASCAR. Dale Tanhart will finish in the green, far in the green. We will lead the Garage fam to victory. We will reclaim our name as the best in certain people's eyes because we're always the best no matter what happens, and that's how it goes. But give us all of the power, and we will use it to win bets and make people a lot of money in the greatest sport in the history of space and time. Auto racing, NASCAR. It's happening. It's done.
Okay. I don't know. I hadn't really touched these in a while, and I got dust in my mouth.
It's okay.
Dale Jr. Budweisers. I brought them out.
Good for you.
Good juju too. All right. I think that's where we end this.
This has been a show. Again, you can follow me at Garage Guy Chase on all social medias, to follow Dale at Dale Tanhart. And make sure that you subscribe to the Garage Guys NASCAR podcast. If this is your first time listening, it is on Apple, Spotify, and every other podcast app in the world. Soon to be on YouTube as well with our betting analysis part of this show. So be on the lookout for those things. Make sure you subscribe to the Garage Guys NASCAR Podcast YouTube channel. It's just youtube.com at Garage Guys Racing. Got a lot of great stuff on there, shorts, videos, the Garage Guys Report, Dale Center, the premier betting show of the Garage Guys. So make sure that you're tuning into all that each week. Subscribe. Let us know that you care. Maybe buy some merch at dailydownforce.com. And, of course, don't forget the greatest sport ever, the people that help you win money in it, the Garage Guys. This has been the Garage Guys NASCAR Podcast. See you later.